Hi, my name is Corey, and I want to share with you a new quantum healing approach that I came up with based on a combination of two alternative healing approaches that have been used for centuries and been passed along generation by generation. And especially during this difficult time, I found that it has had a profound impact on my life, and I wanted to show how this approach works and how it can impact you. My name is Corey, and I've been practicing breathwork for close to 30 years now. I've been working in tapping for about 5 years. I've been doing a lot of quantum healing, alternative healing practices on my own, on and off, for the past, like I said, 30 years. And I have come up with a whole new approach in quantum healing systems that I'd like to share with you, and hopefully it'll help others as much as it has helped me in the past year and a half, especially during this difficult time where we're all kind of stuck in our homes and dealing with a lot of, anxieties and reactions to unusual circumstances. Just a bit about this approach. It is mainly for spiritual healing purposes. This is not to replace any medical conventional practices or techniques. So if you have any medical issues, I would strongly suggest you seek out a medical professional, a psychiatrist, or your doctor, and speak to them about any issues that you may have. This is mainly for spiritual purposes, and it has helped me a lot in the past couple of years, and I really wanted to share my approach in order to help others with practices that have been used, methods that have been used for centuries. Breathwork had been shown to me through a friend of mine when I was very young, in my early 20s, and it was a colleague from work. She had wanted to shift her career, and it had included the breathwork practice. I had tried it, and I got immediate results with it. Breathwork is from the yogic pranayama traditions and has been practiced for, like I said, thousands of years, and passed on from generation to generation. I find that psychology has, over the past 20 to 30 years, has managed to find more traditional practices from Eastern traditions and shamanic traditions to implement a more spiritual and quantum healing aspect to it. And this was kind of the approach that my friend had tried to do in her when she was learning how to do breathwork. Unfortunately, she was only at the beginning of her training, and what had happened was that I had re-experienced something from my youth that I had completely forgotten about, but we didn't know how to confront it or deal with it so that it would be a cathartic experience. It was just a very awkward experience for me, but it was just shocking that I would remember so much in such a short amount of time. A bit more about breathwork. A lot of people probably have heard of Wim Hof or using breathwork during meditation, or just trying to clear anxiety, just to be connected and grounded, and more into the consciousness and mindfulness movement that's been going on for the past 5-6 years. What breathwork does is it's a great way to release creative energy. It helps release anxiety, and also people have found that breathwork can release memories. But it's a healing practice at a quantum level. And what I mean by that is that it's an alternative healing approach. It's more like an energetic healing. So what the breath does is it increases the energy flow in your system, and it releases what's being blocked. And what I mean by that is people who'd been using breathwork practices find that they remember a lot of emotional blockage, things from their past that they've completely forgotten about. So a couple of practitioners who had a background in psychology had the innovative approach of thinking about how to take advantage of this system and release things that are quite difficult to bring to the surface. So we tend to use up a lot of psychic energy in things that we're not aware of, or we find ourselves in situations where we're overwhelmed emotionally and we're being hijacked by something that we cannot explain or we can't understand. What breathwork allows us to do is really bring up the sources of those events in a very energetic and intuitive way. Leonard Orr, who came up with an approach called rebirthing, was looking for a way to find early events that would explain aches and pains or reactions to things that were very difficult to explain, either through hypnosis or through psychotherapy. It became very popular in the late 80s, early 90s, and again, it was introduced to me through a friend who was learning psychotherapy with the induction of rebirthing as part of the psychotherapy process. And what he found was that with breathwork in a specific technical way, you can bring up and relive things, but not necessarily relive the emotions, but just see things from like almost a movie perspective, things from the past that naturally you would have forgotten if it had affected you in a negative or uncomfortable way. And what's interesting is that you're looking at it from an adult perspective. Usually it's stuff from our childhood, things that are what they call pre-vocal events. So things that you wouldn't have been able to explain because you were too young, but using an energy healing approach. But like I said, unless you have a trained professional with you, it's difficult to resolve those issues just with breath work. Usually a session will be, it could be 35, 45, an hour to 2 hours, just to reintegrate those memories and be able to resolve them from an energetic level and a breathwork approach. But unfortunately, I was not in a situation where I could take advantage of that. In fact, I wasn't even aware that breathwork sessions would last that long. I've heard of breathwork sessions where people would be immersed in a pool of water, of warm water, to relive their birth. And fascinatingly enough, that's why the approach is called rebirthing. People wearing a snorkeling mask and breathing, using the breath work in the water to relive their natal experience. Some people had relived their birth and found that aches and pains that they had had for years had gone because they finally found the source of their difficulty. So that is one aspect of the quantum healing approach that I'd like to propose. So tapping. Years later, I was introduced through another colleague at work to tapping. Tapping, or EFT, emotional freedom technique, is basically a way of doing acupuncture or acupressure without the needles. Acupuncture without the needles. It's self-applied, and it's really just literally like tapping. There's no huge pushing or pressure. And while you're doing these acupressure points, you're talking to yourself in a psychological way. This was introduced in the early to mid-90s by a few psychologists and became very popular in the late 90s, early 2000s. And there are tons of videos on YouTube for this if you're very curious. As I said, it was introduced to me a few years ago, and I had found myself in a very anxious situation. I was on my way to a meeting. I had a presentation to do, and I was very nervous. I'm usually a very nervous person to begin with, but I decided, why not give it a try? And I was simply doing this for probably around 3 to 4 minutes, and my anxiety level went from here down to here. I hadn't been that calm in a while in that type of situation, and I was really calm. I was very surprised as to the immediacy of the impact. I'm one of the very lucky people who have had that immediate impact. Some people have a more difficult time, but I think eventually everybody can get benefits from this type of approach. I had been introduced to holistic acupuncture a few years earlier, and I had gone for help with sleep, and I had been not cured, but relieved of acid reflux, flushing of acidity from my system, especially after weight training and swimming. It really has changed a lot in my life, and this is something that I'd like to share with you. Now, they call it emotional freedom technique, but it's really more emotional regulation, which is it's more like freedom from overreacting, but not overreacting in the traditional sense. It's sort of like freedom from being hijacked from by emotional reactions that are out of your control. And what I mean by emotional regulation, and this is a term that's used a lot in psychology, is that it really helps reduce your reaction to triggers. And tapping has been used with therapies for PTSD victims, or sufferers, I should say. It's been used with kids in schools to help anxiety, and it's really non-invasive. It's very easy to learn. All you have to do is hit the points and repeat words in order to reduce reactions. So let's get started on the tapping points. The points that I use are based on the acupuncture sessions that I had in the recent past, but also the tapping that I've learned online through a number of videos and an online course. So I always start with the karate chop, which is the standard, But I also start with a prayer. For me, this is healing at a quantum level, and so I always ask for Spirit to intervene and to help enhance the session, enhance the energy during the session. Especially seeing that it's at an energetic level, to me, the intervention of Spirit or of guardian angel or whatever you feel would be appropriate would really quantify the experience, because it's at a multidimensional healing approach, quantum healing approach. For me, it just adds to the experience. So I start with just a short prayer to Spirit, and then the top of the head. So the center point, the top of your skull, the edge of your eyebrow, so just where your eyebrow starts, side of the eye, so where your eye and the bone meet. Don't hit the inside of your eye, but just the outer edge. So just that edge where the bone is. Underneath the eye, same thing, where the bone is, just underneath your eye. Underneath the nose, so just above, between the nose and the upper lip. Under the mouth, so on your chin, just between your chin and your bottom lip. Right here, where the bone is, I believe it's the collarbone. So just underneath that collarbone, there's like a tender spot right here. The sternum, just between your breasts, bottom, that bone which links your ribs together, just underneath that. So there's like a tender spot right there. The bottom of the ribs, so right where your ribs end, and just that bottom edge, and on the side where your ribs end as well. And then back to your hand. So it'd be the side of your thumb. So just on the side where your nail is. Index finger, same thing, right next to the side of your nail. Middle finger. And then the point between your wedding ring finger and your pinky, there's like a tender spot right here. And then we finish with the karate chop. So we start with the karate chop, we finish with the karate chop. So we'll start with the karate chop, we do the points, and then we go back to the top of the head, and the hand points are your final points when we finish the session. So while you're doing these points, you'll be having a sort of conversation with yourself as to what manifests during the breathwork session. And the conversation you're going to have is, what would you tell yourself if you had the opportunity to reassure yourself, or to just to bring yourself back to now? So, things like that event is, whatever that event is, it's done, it's over with. Let's focus on healing. You don't have to worry about whatever that event was anymore. Be the person that you needed at that moment. I visualize myself like hugging myself as a child in the memory, and just saying things like, I love you, and I'm sorry that happened to you, but you don't have to worry about it anymore. I'm here to protect you now. And all the while, I'm tapping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate a breathwork session, and I invite you to go through one along with me. And as I had mentioned before, it does shift the energy, and I find the tapping complements it very well. I've had just sensations of like electricity going through my body or heat, and I find that it enhances the tapping experience. And the same with the acupuncture. It would take maybe 2-3 days before I would feel the results. I felt a weight being lifted the more I would do this approach. And I really hope that it gives you the same impact that it had with me. So we'll get started on a breathwork session. We have a small window right after the breathwork session to do the tapping. So if you're unfamiliar with tapping, I suggest you practice so that you're not thinking about the points, and really focus and visualize yourself in the memory that you got from the breathwork. Even if you don't have a memory, just focus on yourself, maybe as a child or as a young adult, whatever you feel is comfortable. This is really about just letting go and being honest with yourself. Just an honest and direct experience with quantum healing. So let's get started on the breathwork session. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to show you how to do a breathwork session. This is going to be a very generic one that I'm going to be doing. So if anything manifests, if anything comes to the surface, it'll do so without being induced. But normally, what I would do is I would focus on, an event or something that had happened recently that, like something like an anxiety attack, or I've done, like panic attacks in the past, and it revealed, stuff that I had completely blotted out. As a child, often when we're confronted with something we don't understand, or something complicated, something that's not explainable, we have a tendency to go into fight or flight reaction. And I had found myself going into flight reaction, meaning that I found the coping mechanism of hiding a lot more effective for my circumstances. And unfortunately, when I had, as a child, when I had dealt with or tried to deal with complicated or uncomfortable situations, I would find myself, naturally, this is a natural defense mechanism. You find yourself like forgetting the event or pushing it into your subconscious. It's a natural form of self-defense, but unfortunately, it manifests itself as you grow older. It's almost like the defense wall, the psychic, or the psyche, the wall that the psyche that had originally built tends to fall apart or deteriorate. So those memories tend to manifest themselves in odd and unpredictable ways, and you find yourself being held hostage when having to deal with a set of circumstances that is very similar to what you were being confronted with as a young person. So I had found myself in a situation at work where I had an anxiety attack and I could not explain what it was. And then I did this therapy focusing on that anxiety attack, but just getting comfortable and allowing myself to just drift and allow my mind to go where it needed to go. And I had remembered an event that was very similar to what I had been exposed to at work. And it was something I had completely forgotten about. And then I tapped while thinking about that memory, and I had reminded myself that I was safe, that I would protect, who I was at that time. I told myself I would be the adult to myself. It's really hard to explain, but it's almost like you're tapping to the memory and just saying, you're okay now. Like, you don't really have to worry about that anymore. It's not going to happen again. Or at least I'll do everything in my power to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So, like I had said before, there's this window. So as soon as we are done with the breathwork session, which should take about 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to jump right into the tapping, because we want to take full advantage of the energy shift that happens during breathwork. And so if you are really unfamiliar with tapping, I would strongly suggest you practice, or just go back in the video and see where the tapping points are, and it's very specific. I won't have time to really go into detail during the tapping session right after the breathwork. I'm just going to run right through it. And this is going to be very generic, so I'm going to use more of a Ho'oponopono approach to this session. So it'll be very generic, but I'll keep it in the same spirit as I do with my other approaches. Eventually, if I have time, I'll see if I can do video sessions on specific themes like anxiety or self-worth. But really, this is about conversing with yourself and just regaining trust. And you'll find that there's going to be frustration and sadness that's going to come after the session is done. And that is normal, because what you're doing is you're releasing what's been holding you back. Just be patient, not only with yourself, but with those around you. I had to learn to forgive my parents, who had not, first of all, I had not shared these experiences with them, and they were reacting to situations they didn't fully understand, and they did the best that they could. So you really have to see things from the eyes of an adult when you're looking at this. But understand and reach into that part of you that's still stuck in those old patterns. Again, this is fully a quantum energetic healing approach. So just be open to this new way of understanding the psyche and these layers of events that we use as a wall to protect ourselves, which really isn't necessary, because you can protect yourself. You have to regain your own voice. You have to be who you are in a healthy and a safe way. So let's get started on the breathwork session. The breathwork technique is really it's almost like a controlled hyperventilation. So what we're going to do is we're going to, first of all, try to fill the top part of your lungs. I know this sounds a bit odd, but this is the area where we tend to, when we hyperventilate, this is the area that your body automatically tends to fill. And for some reason, it is the most effective for this type of breath work. Secondly, it's not a 10-second breathing exercise. This is going to be several minutes. So you'll want to breathe through your nose. And why the nose? Because if you breathe through your mouth, it's going to dry up real fast. And what we're doing is called a continuous breath. So you breathe in, and there's no pause. You breathe out immediately. So you breathe in as much as you can, but you don't hold your breath. We have a tendency when we breathe to hold our breath when we breathe in and when we breathe out. So we're going to be and don't try to force it. Just try to be as natural with the breath as you can. Focus on filling the top of your lungs and try to breathe through your nose as much as you can. If you have to breathe through your mouth, just be mindful that you're going to be pausing because it's going to dry your throat a lot faster than if you were breathing through your nose. Second point is to find a space to lie down in, and that's why it's in the bedroom. Now, the way you lie down is important. You don't want to lie down with no support on your back because your neck is going to have a tendency to go down, and it's not going to create a natural flow. So you'll want to keep your back as straight as possible. So try to add support for your back so it's more of an incline for both your back, your neck, and your head. And just to keep that passage clear. So let's get started. I will do my best to coach you through. What we'll be doing is we'll start with long deep breaths, but I'm going to slowly have you accelerate those breaths. And eventually we're going to go fast in terms of breathing in and out. Try not to sit up quickly at the end of it. You might find yourself getting a bit dizzy. So what we'll do is we'll, at the end of the sessions, we'll slowly go back to normal breathing, and then we'll start the tapping. So let's get started. Remember, just ease into it. Let your mind flow. Let your mind wander. And just trust the experience and just be present and let your mind go where it needs to go. So breathe in and breathe out immediately. Breathe in immediately. Out. In. Out. In. Out. In. Out. Feel the top of your chest. In. Out. In. Out. In. Out. In. Out. In. Out. A little faster. 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 And keep going. Okay, we're going to slow down now. We're going to catch our breath. Just go back to normal breath now. We're going to get up, but not right away. We're just going to slow down a bit. You can open your eyes if you want. Now we're going to sit up and sit up slowly. Try not to spin. In the past, I've fallen asleep while doing this, or my fingers will curl up, or I'll have the smell, a smell from my past, and that's normal. These are typical normal reactions to breathwork. Eventually those symptoms are going to disappear after a while. So let's get started on our tapping session. So we'll start with the side of the hand, and we'll just close our eyes and repeat after me. Spirit, please guide us through this tapping session. Help shift our energy for our highest good, and help us release what no longer serves us. Top of the head, I'm sorry. Eyebrow, please forgive me. Again, close your eyes and focus on the memory if you had one. Side of the eye, I love you. Under the eye, you're safe. Under the nose, I will protect you. Under the mouth, I appreciate you. Collarbone, you're beautiful. Sternum, you are worthy of love. Under the rib, I'm here for you. Side of the rib, I will protect you. Top of the head, you are safe now. Eyebrow, what's done is done. Side of the eye, release your doubts. Under the eye, release your anger. It's okay to let go. Under the nose, it's okay to let go in a healthy way, in a safe way. Under the mouth, we don't need to run away anymore. Collarbone, feeling calm. Under the sternum, feeling safe. Under the rib, feeling calm. Side of the rib, feeling safe. Now, side of the thumb, feeling calm. Side of the index finger, feeling safe. Middle finger, feeling calm. Between the wedding finger and the pinky, feeling safe. And karate chop, feeling calm and feeling safe. Take a deep breath. And that's it. Like I said, you'll need to tell yourself and talk to yourself while reliving what came up during this breathwork session. And what the tapping will do is connect to yourself at an energetic level. So I really hope that this approach has an impact on your life, a positive impact on your life as it has with me. And like I said, I will be working on some theme-specified videos in the coming weeks. And I hope that you gain as much out of this as I have. Thank you so much. Namaste.